If you have spent enough time in game dev spaces, you probably heard some version of this advice. Just make a great game. Like there's a magic button that instantly turns your game from average to great. And I'm not saying that it's completely wrong, but it's ignoring the market completely, and it's a bit like telling someone who just started cooking to just make Michelin star food. So what I really want to talk about is this. Do you really need to make a great game to succeed? Is it the best way? And what does great even mean? Quick disclaimer here, my advice is for people who want to do game dev for a living, not hobbyists or people with unlimited runway. Also, in this context, I'm using the term success as simply having enough income from game development that you can keep doing it comfortably. Hi, I'm Onat Öke, and this is Game Designer's Notebook. Yes, it's my notebook. Okay, let's start with the obvious issue. Great doesn't mean anything on its own. How do you define great? Critical acclaim doesn't mean much because critics are also people and everybody has different tastes. What the general audience likes isn't good enough either because you don't need to appeal to everyone and you probably can't anyway. What sells is the worst definition of all because first, lots of games with awful reviews manage to sell hundreds of thousands of units somehow, and second, that's completely circular logic. Do you really believe McDonald's is this big because of the quality of their hamburgers? There are also some games that are engineered to be addictive. While it can be generally accepted as a good quality to have, addiction is not healthy, and therefore we can't automatically call a highly addictive game great. Besides, there are so many amazing games that can only be truly enjoyed once in a lifetime. So even defining great is already hard, let alone achieve it. First and foremost, every game tries to deliver an experience, and I think what sets great games apart from the others is the accuracy of exactly this. Not how much they sold or how many players they have or how polished they are. Only the quality of the experience counts. The visuals, music, story, even the severity of bugs. They only matter if they contribute to or take away from that experience. With that in mind, here's my attempt at defining what makes a great game. A great game is one that captivates its intended audience with the quality of the experience it delivers. If you disagree or you have something to add, feel free to put it in the comments. Okay, moving on. I think we can all agree that having your own audience helps with selling any product, and games are no exception. Lots of game devs nowadays are using YouTube or social media as channels for promoting their games. That's why I want to start there. The biggest advocate of just make a great game advice is none other than Jonas Tyroller, one of the most well-known game dev YouTubers out there. He was one of the people who inspired me to become a game dev myself. He genuinely has a great personality and he generally gives excellent advice, so I want to be very careful here because I'm not trying to throw him under the bus. But I do think his successful track record is working against him and he is a victim of survivorship bias on this particular subject. His first game, Islanders, which he made together with a few friends from school, came out in 2019. A casual, cozy city building game that filled a niche perfectly suited to the Steam audience at the time. Jonas barely had any following at this point, so we can't attribute much of that success to his personal brand. The game found its audience almost entirely on its own. Right genre, right moment, right platform. It filled a gap in the market. Then came Will You Snail? A rage-inducing precision platformer, solo developed by Jonas this time. He shared every step of his development process on his channel. By the time it launched, he had around 130,000 subscribers on YouTube. Some of his devlog videos for the game got over 100,000 views, which is crazy. The game right now has almost 2,500 reviews on Steam, 97% of which are positive. 97%. By Steam's own metrics, that puts it on exactly the same level of quality as his most recent and most commercially successful title, Thronefall. It's a game he co-developed in the minimalist strategy genre with a medieval fantasy theme, all the right ingredients that Steam users love. It was heavily inspired by another very successful game franchise, Kingdom. By this point, Jonas also had a much larger following behind him and Thronefall became his biggest hit by a wide margin. So here's the pattern. Islanders succeeds with no audience, but a very marketable concept. Will You Snail succeeds to a degree propped up by the audience Jonas had built, so marketing is taken care of, but the genre ceiling holds it back. Thronefall combines both, a big following and a highly marketable game, and sales blow up. Jonas believes all three games were very successful because they were all great. He may be right, but I believe he's taking the amount of marketing he gets through his YouTube channel for granted. Looking at the reviews, Will You Snail is a great game, and yet it earned a fraction of what Thronefall did. It even earned less than Islanders, a game Jonas made before anybody knew who he was. Does that mean that Islanders is a better game than Will You Snail? Nope. It's a perfect game for a very specific kind of player. It just doesn't have a popular genre and theme behind it, and no amount of quality can change that ceiling. You can spend 10 years working on a game like that, but it's not gonna matter much. Although he didn't define what a great game is, Jonas believes appeal is one of the 4 pillars of making one. I, on the other hand, don't see appeal as a factor of being great. Some games might not appeal to you at first, but you might discover that you like them a lot if you give them a chance. Or a highly appealing game may fail to deliver its promise and leave a sour taste in your mouth. Like they say, don't judge a book by its cover. I don't care how many players come or why they come to play a game. For me, the quality directly correlates with how much they enjoyed their time playing the game and did it leave a lasting effect on them. The experience is all that matters. We can only judge the quality of games according to what they are trying to achieve. You can't say a puzzle game is bad just because it has no action, or a horror game because it's too violent, because that's precisely the thing they are trying to achieve. If you don't like seeing blood, gory games don't appeal to you, and appeal is very different from quality. Jonas also admits that making a great game is not the easiest way for success. So what is then? Let me give you a few more examples. Game Maker's Toolkit is one of the most well-known game dev channels on YouTube with over 1.7 million subscribers, videos with tens of millions of views. Its creator Mark Brown has strong connections with prominent developers in the industry. People know about him. When he set out to make his first game Mind Over Magnet years after he built up the channel, he had all of that advantage. He chose to make a puzzle platformer, arguably one of the worst performing genres on Steam. The game is considered good by most people who played it. He worked on it for 3 years and it sold over 20,000 copies on Steam, which is great for any developer's first game, especially for a puzzle platformer. But he's not any developer. Imagine if he just made a game in a hotter genre with a more appealing theme. I know he didn't set out to make that game for financial gain. His channel is driving enough income that he doesn't need to do anything else anyway. But for the rest of us, the point still stands. Why make a less marketable game when your effort can be put to better use elsewhere? Pontypants had a much smaller channel than Mark Brown when he started out, but he developed games keeping marketability in mind from the start. His first game, Punch-a-Bunch, performed similarly to Mind Over Magnet, even though it had mildly positive reviews, because it's more appealing to people. It's a funny boxing game with balloon-like characters after all. When asked how much of his first game's success he'd attribute to his YouTube channel, he said a lot. His second game, a difficult game about climbing, earned him a fortune because he had a bigger audience by then. It was overall a better and an infinitely more marketable game, and everything compounded. He not only promoted it himself, but managed to get lots of content creators to play and make videos about it. These people didn't have the experience to make great games when they were just starting out. They made good games, and making a good game is only enough if you have the following or if your game is highly appealing. Now don't even think of going and making a puzzle platformer or a physics-based weird boxing game looking at their sales numbers. If you're not 100% sure that you're capable of making a great game, and if you don't have the following like them, you only have one option: making a marketable game. The good news is, it's much easier than building an audience or making a masterpiece. People often mistake appeal for quality, and size of the audience matters more than you realize. I can show you the perfect example for this. There are 2 games on Steam that are pretty much identical. Cats Organized Neatly and Dogs Organized Neatly. Same developer, same visual style, same concept, and even the same price tag. Both have 97% positive ratings and 80 levels to play. The only difference is one has cats and the other has dogs. Guess which one is getting a sequel? The cat version significantly outsells the dog one. Not because it's a better game, but simply because cats have a bigger audience than dogs. Just look at how many cat-themed games exist on Steam compared to any other animal. This is the kind of decision that makes a big difference for the marketability of your game. And sometimes even making a great game and having a following still isn't enough for a game's success. Alan Hazelden has been running the indie studio Dragneck and Friends since 2013, and he's a designer with multiple highly successful puzzle games such as Sokobond, Cosmic Express, A Good Snowman is Hard to Build, and A Monster's Expedition under his belt. If you play any thinky puzzle games on PC, you know him. His last game, Spooky Express, is a Halloween-themed iteration of Cosmic Express which refined the formula with great design, art and music. And the only negative review about the game is about it not working on a Mac. Yet if you look at the numbers, it failed on Steam. I hope it's doing better on mobile platforms. There is only one explanation that I can come up with in this case, that the game was already in a small niche and the Halloween team pushed it further down. Even being a well-known developer with all that design experience might not save you if your niche is too small. There are niches within niches. The size of your audience changes with every ingredient you put in the dish. You might be working on a Metroidvania, which is a decent performer on Steam. Is it in a sci-fi setting or a fantasy setting? Is it made for hardcore players, or can your 10-year-old niece also play it? How much of it is fighting, how much is exploring, and how much is solving puzzles? All of these are going to affect the number of people it will appeal to. Yes, if you make a high quality game, some people will gladly overlook some of these aspects, even if they don't really like them, because your game will be recommended by others. But most people will still make the decision of the purchase based on what they see and what they imagine to be in your game. Every aspect, from the genre to the mood, the visual style, music, design, themes, difficulty, and even the language it supports, all of those contribute to how marketable your game is. These aren't just creative choices, they are decisions that affect who is going to find your game, if they will give it a try, and whether they'll let their friends know about it. If you can't hook your players with one or more of these aspects, you're not gonna get very far. People simply will not care about your game's perceived quality or how much time you spend making it if they are not interested in it in the first place. Marketing is not something you do when you're about to release your game. It starts the moment you decide what kind of game you're making. Your game's genre is often the thing that has the highest impact on its success or failure in a specific market, especially if you're doing most of the work yourself. That's why you need to be very conscious about the decision when choosing it. You also need to know your own limitations and the current state of the market to find a path where you won't fall into any traps. Every type of game has a different list of priorities that need to be satisfied. The bar for writing quality, for example, is much higher in a visual novel than in a simulation game. Players will forgive average or even non-existent animation in a strategy game, but not in a platformer or a third-person action game. If you're a solo developer, you're going to be mediocre in some areas. And that's fine. The goal isn't to be great at everything. The goal is to make sure your weaknesses don't land in the parts of your game that matter the most. Outsourcing the things that would add value to the game is also an option. Don't be afraid to use an asset pack if it will take your game to the next level. There are players who exclusively play AAA games and will dismiss anything with pixel art aesthetics without a second thought. In the meanwhile, there are other players who prefer a game with some tasteful pixel art in a cozy setting. Some very successful games deliberately use grungy, low-resolution textures and low-quality 3D models to create an eerie atmosphere. Some use nostalgia and try to appeal to players who missed the PlayStation 1 era games. Gore is a turn-off for some people, but it's exactly what others are looking for. The point is, your game has a language that speaks to your players through art and mechanics. With every decision, you're actually trading the marketability of your game. Be smart about these choices and focus your effort on the things that matter the most. There is one very important thing to note here. You're making a game for the audience that exists right now, not the one you grew up with. What worked 10 or 20 years ago might not work today, and what works today might not work in 5 years. Nostalgia is a powerful tool when used right, but Always develop your game with modern players in mind. Also worth mentioning, trend chasing can be dangerous because by the time you release your game, your audience might be over it, so be careful. Making a great game might be the best way to make sure you succeed, but aiming to make a marketable game first is a much easier way of finding success, and it doesn't keep you from making a great game anyway. Plus, you can always test for appeal quickly with a few screenshots and maybe a trailer on social media. Most of the time, you don't know if a game is great before it's close to finished. You don't have to start a devlog if you're not into it just for the sake of promoting your game, but you at least need to make it easier for your game to be promoted by other people. Do your market research, have an understanding of what people actually want. Then, pick a feasible genre. Be conscious about the theme and style of your game and be aware of what you're trading with every design decision. They say when you try to appeal to everyone, you appeal to no one. But as we've seen, appealing to a too limited audience is just as dangerous. Reaching 1 million players with an okay game beats reaching 1,000 players with a masterpiece. Don't get me wrong, I'm not telling you to give up your dreams or to make soulless clones. Don't go out of your way to make something you hate just because you think the market demands it. But at least give your game a fighting chance. Make sure that you're not the only person who will enjoy your creation. Thanks for watching and, like, subscribe, usual stuff.